Welcome back. Today we are digging into the industry of hacking. So first of all, Dave, what is the industry of hacking?
I don't think most people even know there's a whole industry around it, right? All these people out there, whether they're living in their parents' basements or overseas somewhere, the bulk of them is, their whole job is to hack people to make money, right? And sort things out of them. You were telling me something about what size that industry even was the other day, right?
Yeah, so McAfee did a study February of 2018, and their estimates of that industry right now are about $450 to $600 billion a year associated with the industry of hacking, their estimates going forward.
Right, so it's not even $1 trillion yet, so it's probably not even something worth worrying about. So yeah, seriously, it is something that it's a big deal out there. There's a lot of people out there trying to do it. Some do it for fun, just to try to see if you can do it. A lot are trying to do it for money and creating viruses and malware, and it almost becomes this underground competition between them, right, in terms of what they can do. And what I've found is I talk to a lot of people, especially in that small medium market space, that they expect that it's the big guys they're going after. It's the enterprise organizations, it's the General Motors and Kraft Foods and Procter & Gamble kind of stuff, and that's absolutely not the case. Those companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on data security and protection and systems and that type of thing, and so the way in is not through them directly, but through some of their suppliers and people that they do business with, right? So it's private enterprise, largely private.
I think I saw
small companies.
The latest data on it was about 50% were 250 million below. A big 25% of that were the smaller mark, so I think it was under 15 million. And then 60% of that is private organizations. So they're going after the small, medium, and that also is across all industries. They're breaking away from the healthcare because financially there's so many healthcare records that have been stolen that the dollar value per record has gone down. So it's kind of extending out across a lot of industries as well. So pretty much what you're saying is everybody's a target.
Yeah, everybody's a target. I know everyone kind of defaults to, well, it must be financial companies. They're the ones that are a target. And then people started to get, a little bit more wise to the idea that, well, it's healthcare too, because you can sell those records and make money for that. But it really has been across all industries that are impacted by this and have to be thinking about some core things they have to do to make sure that their data is protected, their clients' data is protected, employee data is protected, and managed appropriately.
No, that's a good point. I think some of these things too are pretty easy. We're not really digging too deep into the subject matter as far as a technology standpoint. What do you have to do? We're talking about some simple things I think that businesses can do to minimize the amount of risk with that industry growing this rapidly, because with everyone being a target, and I think it will hit $1 trillion at some point, it is growing. So everyone's a target and everyone's at high risk. So, some of the simple things that can be done, I think one of the easiest is a password policy. The most common exploit today for hackers to get in is just simple passwords or lost passwords. So implementing a password policy where you have to have, a little bit more difficult, harder passwords, a little bit longer character sets or symbols are mixed in with that. That's a good step.
It's like 8 characters,
and
it has an uppercase and lowercase.
Yep.
You can just start with something like that says you're going to at least have this level of security in your password.
At a minimum, I think. And we've talked before about password managers to help kind of manage some of that, because it is hard for everyone to remember different passwords like that. But also even setting on that policy a time frame where that password's active. So I would say make it 8 or 10 characters, make it a little bit more complex, and have everyone in the organization change it every 30 or 60 days. And it sounds like a lot, but when you're using a password manager, and ours is like that too, we change ours very frequently. But I don't necessarily have to remember it because we use the password managers for that, and others can do the same thing. So that kind of makes it fairly easy to roll out. It's more procedural at this point, creating the policy and enforcing the policy. That's one tip I think can get people started right away.
Yeah, another thing I like to talk to our clients and folks we talk to about is the idea of protecting your email and keeping that safe, right? So email is the gateway into your organization. You have to have it to be able to communicate in or out. So doing some just core fundamental things in email, whether it be a good spam protection on the email. We like to use advanced threat protection on top of that so that it's protecting those attachments coming in that could have malicious software in them, or links that are going to take you out to some harmful site. And a lot of times what's cool about doing something with your email is it's something that your team members and employees can relate to, that change you're gonna communicate about, and that's an opportunity to talk about sharing that knowledge and training with the team, right? Knowing that hackers are out there, that we are a target, and we have to make sure that we're being diligent to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great additional tip there is training of everyone within the organization is necessary today. These attacks are actually pretty simple. They're not a lot of SWAT team style hackers out there that are breaking into small businesses. It's people that are see an easy target and decide to take it because there's low risk, and that's because of passwords and because of exploiting of email, and that's because of sneaking a USB drive in and all of those different techniques that they're using. So education of what are these attacks, what's spear phishing, what is phishing, what are some of these things that people are doing to actually get into a company. Just knowing what it is, sometimes it's social engineering. A lot of these hacks out there, and some of the most famous hackers, just pick up the phone and call and get all the answers that they want. They get your account, they get your credentials on a phone call, and then they can get into your account. So it's just simple training that goes a very long way in mitigating some of this risk. I think, even on top of that, just some procedural changes within the company. So for example, one of the big ones that we tout is not using free Wi-Fi, or at least sending secure information over free Wi-Fi, because over 90% of the data that's pulled or systems that are compromised are over a free Wi-Fi system, not a private Wi-Fi. And what I mean by that is I have a cell phone and it has hotspotting or tethering on it. So when I use that as my internet access, even when I'm sitting at a coffee shop, I now minimize the opportunity for hackers to get into my system by over 90%. And that's a huge jump to minimize some of that risk. So we would suggest, if you are going to do free Wi-Fi, if you are working out of a coffee shop every day, then either do something like a VPN back to your office, or just don't send sensitive information, or make sure every website you go to has an HTTPS, meaning it's a secure site. They have a certificate, they're encrypting everything. If you can do those things, it takes another huge step into minimizing what this impact from this hacking industry, this 450 to 600 billion, how many dollars are coming out of you? It's minimizing that.
Yeah, I think the simple thing out of that is, because there's a lot of options with the free Wi-Fi, right? Even if you just boil it down to just use your phone as your hotspot and just be done with it, not have to worry about it anymore, is probably the simplest approach to be able to do that. But these things with hackers, it's not you're not trying to prevent the guy that's trying to hack into the NSA or the FBI getting into your system. These are typically mid to low level hackers, and they're looking for easy exploits. So it's these core fundamental things that we just kind of talked about today, which are they really are just that. They're basic, core, fundamental things that have to be addressed to really significantly mitigate the risk of being a target.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Right. If you do nothing, you're easy. So why not go after you?
Right.
Yeah. Do a few things, and you put yourself up higher on that list, and less appealing for some of the hackers right now. They're 16 to 19 years old, so they're not really looking for an investment from a time perspective to get into you.
Yeah.
They don't even know what data you have.
Sure.
So minimize that, lower the amount of access they have, taking a couple different steps, change the passwords a little more frequently, get out of the free Wi-Fi, do some of those things, and it goes a long way.